Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you'd like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live. There's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. We are joined by a whole bunch of people in both Discord and G+, as this is actually the second live show of the day, so I'll raise the mic on them and you can enjoy their dulcet tones, as I'm going to dig out a little bit of promotional wear for my current GoFundMe
what
campaign.
show number it'll be next?
Right, we are live now.
Oh. What show number is it, Nathan?
11:13. Is there a reason why you're asking me? I'm just going to do a quick plug to my fundraiser now that we're live. So be sure to check out my GoFundMe campaign, e-begging for an iPad. I'll put a link in the live chat right now if you want to check it out. And I'll also post it in the comments once this video has rendered. But check it out. I'm about 2/3 of the way there already, so massive shout out of appreciation to all of the people who've already contributed to this campaign. Massive shout out to the 2 or 3 anonymous people who donated in the last 15 or 20 minutes, so massive thank you to you. Also, is that Brend M? Thank you very much for your support also. And Dell West Watson, Silver Umbrella, NASA is Fake, Simon Dan, Blue Marble Science, Fight the Flat Earth, Planner Walk, Chris Berry, Scott Ganneman, oh God, I'm going to say his... Yeah, oh God, I'm going to butcher his name. I've done this every single shout out, and the guy was so kind in offering me equipment. There's been a couple of people that have offered me various different Apple equipment, some not quite good enough, some too good for this campaign, but I've then gone on to actually contribute to the campaign. So massive shout outs to all of you who've contacted me in that regard. Jano, there you go, Jano Savvy, thank you very much for your support. Colin Turner, another anonymous donor, gave me £140. Wow, thank you very much indeed. NZ, Sally Ballis, Rob Huntston, Red Pill Philosophy, Michael Nyby, along with another bunch of anonymous donators, Mr. Burnfat and thedailyplane.com. So a massive shout out of appreciation to all of you for supporting their campaign. If you are watching live, you'll see a link to the campaign if you did want to support it going by now. So that's probably enough about that. Any signs of a physical Earth curve edge capable of geometric measurement?
Nope.
Not with an atmosphere, apparently.
Not with an atmosphere. Yeah, we're definitely experiencing air. I don't know if I like this term, atmosphere. Air. We've definitely got air.
Yeah,
any signs?
Atmosphere.
Atmo, meaning air. Sphere, meaning sphere.
Working in their presupposition, they say that the only reason that we don't see the geometric horizon is because we have air.
Wait, atmosphere. You said atmosphere? Like a bubble?
All I heard in that statement, Chocolate, was we don't see a geometric horizon.
Yep. Those were the most important parts of that. So,
hey, listen, Nathan, let's rattle through these housekeeping questions because I've got a poem to read.
Any signs of Earth curvature?
Absolutely none.
Any signs of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety?
Only if you look at the stars and imagine you're on a sphere.
Any evidence of the distance to the sun?
No, what is the sun?
I've no idea. I thought you wanted to rattle through this.
Keep rattling, keep rattling.
Any evidence you can have gas pressure without a container?
Definitely none. And you can't redefine gravity to be a container, fight the flat Earth. It's not a container, it's an effect.
Any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics?
No, the phases of the moon are not a... what did you say?
Any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of...
Hypothesis.
The phases of the moon are not a viable hypothesis, Danny Faulkner. You haven't got an independent variable.
We might get his response to that if I think the guy's name was Marcus. If he rears his head again, we might find out if there's been a response to that. Not that we're particularly hanging on Danny Faulkner's every word, but nonetheless. Any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth?
No, Paul Boyd's promising that for years, and we've not heard anything from him. He reckons he's got it, and we're too unintelligent to understand it. But I keep checking my emails, and there's nothing there from him.
Any evidence of Earth radius, the R value?
Only if you assume it.
They're not assuming it at the moment. They're denying it. It's incredible.
So then the horizon must be apparent only. Then there can't be a geometrical one if they're denying it.
Yeah, like Chocolate's statement earlier. They say we don't see a geometric horizon, whereas the very tenets of their religion is that we have a geometric horizon and Earth curve radius value dictating the physicality of the ground beneath our feet. But they're literally relinquishing it all and telling us that horizon's not an actual position, it's a non-physical, apparent, redundant term when talking about horizons, position, non-physical.
That's a bit of a problem if you believe that
Massive
we live on a
problem.
sphere.
Massive problem if you think you're on a physical sphere with sphere geometry giving the physicality to your horizon. To deny that is to deny your own religion, but they don't quite get that, and they cackle and laugh while they say, why are they accepting refraction? We've got a refracted horizon, why don't they understand? Yeah, we do understand that you're relinquishing the very physical geometry you claim when you say we're on a sphere, when you say the horizon's refracted, you complete boneheads.
Yeah. Are we done?
That concludes the housekeeping.
Woo! I've got a 7-verse poem, right? And I swear to God, if I don't get a round of applause at the end of it, if I get through this without stuttering or stammering my way through it, because there's a couple of key words in here.
Okay.
I want a round of applause at the end of it. So seven verses, 4 lines of verse.
Then I need to do a few things. Right. Arwin, are you there?
Yeah, you go on mute.
No, even worse is if he's not here, because then he'll come back and feel the need to tell us that he hasn't been here for a period of time.
Yeah.
Well,
He'll come in between breaths and he'll start talking.
Yeah. Okay, I think everyone else is clear just by using Arwin as an example. In your own time, Anthony.
All right, so it's about Black Swan, and it's called The Tomb of Value R. Okay? It's come from a girl called Lite Energy, and she's asked, will I read it? So I said, I'll read it at the start of this show. So she knows where to find it, and I'm going to try and get through this in one hit, because I think she wants to splice it out and put it into a movie or something. I'm not quite sure, but anyway. The Tomb of Value R. One cold morn, as the new year was dawn, a logic was brewing, the legend Black Swan. A weapon so deadly, yet elegant and sleek. They never saw it coming, their future was bleak. Even as the warning bells were sounded out loud, the globeheads denied flatly and remained sure and proud. The Swan glided closer as they shouted us down, claiming ignorance and stupidity was the norm in our town. The Swan remained stoic as it birthed in their dock, while globeheads oblivious continued to mock. The Trojan horse of swans, with a majestic inky gaze, had already beasted the labyrinth of their mathematical maze. The globeheads in their towers saw the strategy unfold. They saw the traps laid bare and the evident manifold. As the details crystallized, backlit by the sun, the crowds grew eerily silent as the web had come undone. They panicked in their haste, with double speak on the draw. A court jester performance was their geometric flaw. Imaginary horizons as far as the eye can see, and redefined refraction revealing their oblivious fallacies. Ad hominems tipped their axes on the heels of lawless gas, as they gathered stones in hand in their globe model made of glass. We all held up mirrors on virtual battlefield, as nothing else was needed for our side to wield. As their model shattered by stone at globehead hands, we watched and waited for news to fill the lands. This was the crowning jewel at the Tomb of Value R, for the refraction calculator doesn't let you see that far. From Lite Energy. How good is that?
Light Energy, massive shout out. That was excellent. I've got goosebumps. Well read, answer.
Very good.
Very, very good.
Light Energy, props to that. That was awesome.
Yeah.
Here.
We just need some like medieval, mystical, wavy kind of like labyrinth-esque music or like pictorial stuff in the background, and you can really get this sense of walking through the wilderness of the woods whilst that's being read. It's cool.
Very cool.
I like how the Black Swan has become a muse and is inspiring people to write music, do poems. Like, that's awesome. The death of the geometric horizon.
Trying to read out this comment from the chat. Bill G says, Nathan Oakley, not goosebumps, swan bumps.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, a shout out to Del from Beyond the Imaginary Curve. Did you see his latest upload? He was outside one of the universities, Glasgow University, chatting to these dudes, like two people and a guy on his own. And it was a really, really good back and forth. I haven't seen anything like that from Del for ages, but it was Del at his best. So shout outs to Del.
Cool. Channel's called Beyond the Imaginary Curve. If you want to check that out in the audience.
I like it. I like that poem. That was nice. It was basically, people in glass houses don't throw stones, but there is a nice reference to that there. Could you reread that part there, Anthony?
With the glass, with the
should
glass
be near the end.
Ad hominems tipped their axes on the heels of lawless gas as they gathered stones in hand, their globe model made of glass. We all held up mirrors on the virtual battlefield as nothing else was needed for our side to wield. As their models shattered by the stone at globehead hands, we watched and waited for news to fill the lands. This was the crowning jewel at the tomb of value R, for the refraction calculator does not let you see that far.
That's
really
a great
good
ending.
Pardon?
Say again, Travis.
Oh, I said that's a great ending. R and far go great together.
I hear there's some sort of remix version of it. EDM? I don't know. Crazy.
Is that what the kids are listening to?
We'll have to get you to do a remix of it, a dance or trance remix.
It'd need to be sung.
Careful,
though,
I'll
wouldn't it?
release Charlie's Angels on you.
Charlie's Angels? I don't mind. Send them my way.
I thought it was QE's Angels. What happened?
It is QE's Angels. It's early. Give me a break.
Morning, brother.
Gave you big props earlier. I don't know if you're listening. I know it had been in the after show in regards to going on the offensive as opposed to defending. A lot of the positions may have seemed offensive, but I think the Black Swan is a real turning point in terms of going on the offensive. Would you agree? Well, I gave you props, even if you don't. You better agree.
Yeah. Yeah, always go on the offensive. Always offensive. Always.
Yeah, the best defense is a good offense.
Yes, sir.
No claims and attack their model. Best way of doing it.
Yeah, that was one of the most useful tips I got from Quantum Eraser was words to the effect of, I don't need to come up with my own just so story to pummel yours. And yep. Anthony says, make no claims. That's obviously more concise. But the point is that if somebody comes up to you and starts telling you a story about how they flew on a unicorn and how they got to see the lie of the land by flying on a unicorn, and you start saying, hold on, unicorns aren't real. That's just an imaginary fable creature. Well, you don't have to come up with a justifiable reason for how the person has seen the lay of the land because you're denying unicorns. You can just pummel their argument about them flying on a unicorn. You don't have to come up with your own bullshit story as an equivalent. The problem here is that our opponents have been trained. They've gone through boot camp And their training has told them to get the enemy to establish a contrary position for you to set on fire. So they've got a position that they want a contrasting position to argue against. They've got a ball shape model that they want us to have an equivalent so that they can burn it. But we don't need to. You don't need to assert that you've got a model. You don't need to assert that you know the shape of the earth, or you're a cartographer, or you know the layout of the land, or you know how the stars work, or you know what the sun is. You don't need to assert any of that. In many ways, it's part of the joy that I express about this subject. Not knowing is a wondrous position to be in. Now, they turn that into some sort of negative. Well, you've got to provide me a just so story about what the sun is, because I'm saying it's 93 million miles away. So, what's your excuse for where the sun is and how far it is? What's your model? And you go, I haven't got a fucking model. What are you talking about? I don't have a model. I just know you're talking crap when you assert physical sphere geometry and physical sphere horizons blocking buildings, because we don't have any of that. Do I need to come up with a proper map or a model to absolutely pummel the idea of being on a spinning space ball flying through a vacuum? No. I can just crap all over it and just walk away. Morgile got a mention on the last show. I'll get another mention here. So probably 4 years ago now, Morgile went on with Tim Osman and another couple of dudes, a couple of globe trolls, and started to attack their position of being on a sphere. So he took it apart from mainly a celestial position in terms of various things that didn't work. And every time he tried to get to an example of how the sphere Earth didn't work, they'd stop him, not let him make his example, and just demand that he gave an explanation on a flat Earth. And he'd say, well, I don't have an explanation for this. I don't know how the stars work, but I understand how they don't work. I can show how they are not correct in your model. But they wouldn't tolerate it. So he didn't get to make any of his examples because they're like, no. Prove a flat Earth, prove a flat Earth, prove a flat Earth. Now, here and now, 4 years later, we go, well, the nature of our reality is obvious and observable. We see it every day. Breaking your geometry based on your presupposition of an R value, that's far more difficult because you're all indoctrinated. You're all zealots at the ground level in the trenches here. Fundamentalist religious zealotry reigns supreme. They chant their way through their claim to be proofs with their assumptions held true. Until now. Because their assumptions are being relinquished every time they use the word refraction. And at the moment, they don't even realise it.
Yeah, I love the part when you would tell people, I don't owe you a just so story.
Yeah. The best advice that John gave me was, don't eat yellow snow.
Well, you do have a dog, so that kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
There's lots of quality tips that have come my way from Quantum Eraser. But falling into the trap of giving them their straw man so they can burn it was a great piece of advice. You don't need to give an explanation. They're offering an explanation and you're challenging it. It ends there. If they satisfy their own claim, normally a claim with the word science attached to it, let's be honest, then job's a good one. You can prove what you're claiming. Do I have to make a claim in order to challenge yours? No. I don't need to make a claim about anything. I don't know what the sun is. I don't know what the sky is. I don't know what the forced shape that we're supposed to adhere to should be or must be. I don't know any of that. Most of it, I haven't really concerned myself with it too much, let's be honest. I've been here 4 years. I haven't started investigating what the sun is. Shout out to Flat Earth Data. Not going back. Welcome to Flat Earth. Right on. I think that, again, we said this in the last show. There's plenty of people who are watching this on the fence that you got a bit of a dig in this regard, Anthony. When you're arguing with the fundamentalist religious zealots on the show, you're looking for the concession you'll never get. They're just going to chant the same bullshit over and over. But the audience, on the other hand, hears that. And it's very telling.
See, I only do that with gravity because gravity is one of those most intrinsically deep-rooted, brainwashed things that is so powerful in terms of everybody understands it, but nobody actually knows what it is. And when you get them to try and define it, they can't. They stutter their way through it and stammer it. And eventually, they will eventually concede that it is bendy space-time as per current science. But it directly conflicts with the heliocentric model. Because on the one hand, you've got the current science saying that gravity is in effect. But in their model, it needs to be a force. Well, if the current science says that it's an effect, but their model needs it to be a force, what does that mean in terms of the outcome? It means that they haven't got a force of gravity, right? But they will eventually concede to that because they've got to. And then when you try and get them to formulate what it is that makes Newton's apple fall from the tree using Einsteinian, it's so difficult to do. They stutter and stammer like babies that can't talk. And eventually they'll stutter and stammer something out that resembles space-time. And it has absolutely no coherent sense whatsoever in the context of stuff falling to the ground. And then when you cite the George Musa article where it says when apples fall from trees, or words to this effect, it says you're not seeing them fall down, you're seeing them roll through the contours of time. It's just pure poetry, theoretical physics in poetry at the best, in the best of examples. And it's like Max Planck said, anything that's not got experiment is poetry at best. And that's what they're doing. They're talking poetry. But yeah, I like them to concede on gravity because it's such a powerful argument, and I'm happy to beg the question. Whereas in contrast, I don't like the Coriolis argument because you've got to show the Earth turning first. Whereas Nathan's the other way around. He likes arguing about inertial reference frames and non-inertial reference frames and getting caught up with the slightest phraseology slip there, and they'll jump on it because they know that it's convoluted, it's double speaking, it's all that. And I don't like that. I just say, no, prove Earth turning first. Otherwise, you're not having Coriolis. And Nathan's like,
you're missing the point, though. When they argue Coriolis, they're not arguing for the Earth spinning. They're literally arguing for it not spinning. They're arguing for the reasoning as to why you don't see Coriolis, even though that's what they're supposed to be fucking proving.
Yep.
It's the best thing.
It's so convoluted
Not
and
quite.
backwards.
Let me just correct that. Not quite. They're assuming Earth spins in their example and then denying Coriolis deviation with their example. So the assertion that we can prove Earth spins is to claim we have a Coriolis effect. And in the argument about Coriolis effect proving Earth spins, they deny Coriolis effect and claim Earth and atmosphere spin as one, resulting in no Coriolis effect. In essence, they deny Coriolis effect to assume Earth spinning with the atmosphere velcroed to it, even though gas is completely unbonded, moves freely in all directions randomly, and has no layers. So it's completely inhomogeneous, anisotropic, and they claim it's bonded to an Earth that's spinning in their presupposition. So they essentially argue against Coriolis effect with an assumption of Earth spinning along with the atmosphere to prove the claim Earth spins, when the claim Earth spins at the higher echelons of globe bullshit is a claim that we have a Coriolis deviation, something we don't observe. I'll stick our pictorial example up while I'm talking. Something we don't observe in reality. So because we don't observe a Coriolis deviation, they argue for not having one, but whilst assuming Earth is spinning with the atmosphere. There you go.
Yeah, Nathan, let me just address this comment from chat. I'm just done with hearing the same old stolen rhetoric Nathan gets from QE and others and makes profit out of it and doesn't give QE credit for the formulation of the Black Swan modus tollens argument. How many times have you credited
Is
John?
that a serious comment?
Yeah. How many times have you credited QE?
What?
What are you talking about?
Somebody just turned this shit on today?
What are you talking about, credit QE? I think you'll find this is my argument. Copyright Nathan Oakley 1980 smash the super chat.
You need to ban QE then, because he must be claiming that it's his.
You better not be.
Oh, now everybody's. Oh, it's mine. It's mine.
Yeah.
It's my precious argument.
No, it's my precious argument. I'm making bank here. I need a new second-hand
No,
poster.
gives it back.
Oh, apparently,
Burns us.
You tricks us. You tricks.
Excellent.
apparently, Ranty is the realist panelist up there, even though he's not on the panel, with Quantum Eraser and Chocolate and 10th. Nathan and Arwin are highly questionable. What about me? I'm on the panel. I didn't even get a shout out.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
I'm offended.
Yeah, I'm well dodgy. I thought everyone
I
realised
didn't
that.
even get a mention.
That's all right. People just see
I
you.
demand an insult. I at least need to be 50-50.
I was going to say, saying that you're benign is kind of almost an insult in itself, really.
I didn't even get mentioned.
Dearth didn't get a mention. He manages the whole show.
He owes me my commission for last week. I've not been paid.
That's nothing to do with me.
Commission.
John Watson said that I'm very dodgy. Do I feel better now? I do. Shout out to John Watson.
But without mentioning any names, a few of the chat commenters have recently turned to haters for some reason. I don't really understand what's going on. A little bit upsetting at first. So I was in the chat yesterday and some people who've been very complimentary even dropped super chats and supported the show. Suddenly really hating on me, and I'm like, oh, this is a little bit upsetting. I thought you were nice. Well, people are quite fickle.
Yeah. Have you bought all your toilet roll and your multi-pack of Monster Munch, Nathan? Just in case.
Understand what that means. What the hell does that mean?
The advice apparently is that because 20% of the population might die, you should all stock up on stuff. And I've seen people with stocks of stuff. I haven't brought my multi-pack of Monster Munch yet. Although I am watching Bitcoin and I'm watching that fall through the floor. So if this is any good for Bitcoin, I might be buying some Bitcoin if it carries on falling. So shout out to the Corona flu. I'm watching Bitcoin.
I'm not interested in any of this shite.
Don't do in market scams, especially when they're virus spell based. I would not advise it.
Other than this possibly encouraging a unsuspecting newbie audience member to make their way into the Discord server to challenge us on some nonsense we're talking about, Bitcoin or coronavirus, whatever the latest
Corona
feared one
flu.
is.
It's not called coronavirus anymore. It's called Corona flu.
Right.
I have an advanced version.
Yeah.
I've dubbed it the Heineken virus. Thank you.
Yeah, I had my Corona last night. 4 bottles.
It's okay. Right. No, but I'm pretty sure it's the flu, and I think this scenario, for some reason, is, you could almost say, cosmic. A cosmic. I don't know. It's like the the Spanish flu. When I was a little kid, it just swept the world all of a sudden. Nobody saw it coming, and they barely even had enough time to basically announce it and let it sink into people. So it's the flu, and we don't really understand the flu. There's theories about it. There's viral theories about it, and I have grave doubts about them. And so did other people in history that have been covered up badly. So,
Are we done?
Yeah.
Shout out to Unicorn Laser Eyes, who says, just flew in to let you know. The ballers on Discord don't get the Black Swan argument. Day 58 and counting. Yeah, I've got to agree with you. There was a dude on yesterday, might be in, don't take offence if you are, that was like, yeah, they do get it. The higher guys get it. And I'm like, no, I don't think they do. I want to hear them recite the argument to understand that they get it. Because I don't think they do. They certainly don't overtly express outwardly that they get it. They do quite the opposite as far as I'm concerned. So yeah, I agree, Luke. Thank you for the super chat. I agree, Unicorn Laser Eyes. It does certainly seem that the people who we interact with do not understand this argument. And when they try and debunk it, they embarrass themselves and debunk their own argument. They're letting off hand grenades in their own barracks and thinking they're doing well. It's amazing.
Some of them know. I know it. Some of them know that shit. And they understand it and understand how devastating it is, which is why they have to play stupid and have to play like, oh, I don't understand it. Or I'll just play like, I'm not going to recite the Modus Tollens. No, I'm not going to do that. Because if I do that, it puts it on blast that I understand, and then I have to rebuke right after that, and I'm going to get destroyed. So I'd rather just play dumb and say things like the Q is a straw man or some nonsensical thing like that.
Now, just
that works much better.
I'm just throwing this out there, Chocolate. Obviously, you could be right. The last bit of your statement could just stand on its own, though, couldn't it?
Yeah.
Just dumb. Just dumb. Not the whole convoluted bit that you put in before where they understand it, but then cognitively block it, only to tell themselves they need to act stupid. I don't think it's an act. I just think they're stupid.
I get that. I don't like to underestimate things and people. You know what I mean?
Well,
But yeah,
but we're dealing
most of them are
with
just stupid.
creatures of habit. So their mantra is refraction, 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 refraction. So they've come to something that challenges the geometry, and they go refraction, refraction, refraction. So they're just chanting morons.
Yeah, I agree. That.
I mean, give me names. You give me an example where you think that they understand the argument but are just playing dumb, and I'll have a closer look if you like. But or anybody in Discord can give me a name of anybody they think definitely understands this argument from the globe side. Anybody at all?
Well, why does Rumpus not? He normally understands them.
See, but I think that's exactly what it is. I think Rumpus does understand, which is why he was here talking about, yes, we do have a geometric horizon. And then right afterwards, it was, no, we don't. And then we do. Because he gets how devastating it is. He might have to do the flipping back and forth because he has no choice at that point. He's already in the hot seat, but he gets it. I mean, that's why he went to Andrew Thomas Young to talk to him about this looming thing. See, I guess if they can reinforce that as an argument, and then got it taken away in the meantime, which is freaking hilarious to me. So, I mean, I don't know, man. I mean, obviously, we're talking about Mr. Air is not the atmosphere, so only so much credit can be given, right? But again, I don't like to underestimate people. It's just my personal opinion. I don't know.
What I tried to say yesterday, there, but I didn't get a chance to say it, was that when this first came out, Black Swan, Rumpus got that immediately. I believe Rumpus knows exactly. He gets that. And he came up with everything is always refracted, and that was his argument. Now, the rest of the ballers, most of them, I mean, more or less all of them, didn't get the argument. And the ones that even remotely did, right? The ones that even remotely did, right? Uh, due to Rumpus trying to explain it to him on hoses and other places, they didn't go along with Rumpus's argument. So they started coming in with all these different things. Like refraction was refraction is it's all refraction, right? Then when I questioned on that, they can't come up with specifics. Then there was the Q is a straw man, and whatever other nonsense to come up with. The arm is bending. You can see the arm is bending on the black platform. All this rubbish. If they had gone along with Rumpus's and what Rumpus's argument against it was, they certainly wouldn't be winning, but they would have been doing much better with damage control. But they didn't do that. Rumpus got it. The rest of them didn't. He didn't even try to explain it to him, and I don't think they still got it. So if they had gone along with Rumpus, they would have done a whole lot better. Not that they'd be winning, but they would have done better.
Okay, maybe I'm missing something about what Rumpus went through, but as far as I could understand it from his presentation, he just accounted it to refraction.
He has to. He has no choice. It's either that or say it's flat. You know,
yeah,
he knows
that's
not
still. Yeah, but I know you already disclaimed that's not a winning position. But not only is that not a winning position, that's the same checkmate that everyone else has fallen into when they've come here and gone, look, the horizon isn't the geometric sphere edge that we've asserted for the last 5 years, it's refracted. And we go, welcome to flat Earth. In fact, correct me if I'm wrong, I did that with Rumpus.
Yeah, but it's a case of, as I said, damage control. It's damage control. That's what it is. It's like, what is the best? Like, the problem is the rest of them don't realize that they have to go into damage control. Rumpus saw it immediately. The immediate damage control, extreme damage control was needed. Rumpus saw this. So that's why Rumpus took the line he took. But people didn't. He tried to explain to people what on his side what the argument was. They couldn't get it. Like even QE said it that he listened to him trying to explain it for 3 hours or something on whole days. You know, it's like Rumpus got the argument. He tried to do major damage control, but he needed the rest of them to follow his lead, and they didn't. So it doesn't make him any more of a winner, no. But if they'd followed Rumpus's damage control, they would have been a slightly less of a loser.
I
If
see.
you understand what I
So
mean.
what you're saying is they needed to follow him explaining that you need to double speak and obfuscate between geometric and non-geometric, whilst maintaining the illusion to the audience that there is only one horizon, but talking about two. In other words, doing what he did here by talking about the two different horizons, one geometric in their model, one the actual one we see, and how the one we see is actually based on the geometric horizon. In other words, explain the problem like it's a solution. Precisely what he did here. And if you can perfect that technique, you can keep your opponent dancing and leave the conversation in obfuscation and confusion in the eyes of the audience, because he's managed to flip-flop between non-geometric and geometric 30 or 40 times during an hour-long conversation. Now, unfortunately, he's tried that, and it just gets to the nub of the point quickly. Do we or don't we have a physical geometric horizon, as you're asserting in your model? No, we don't. We see an apparent horizon. Well, your model's got a geometric horizon, that's what you're asserting. Yes, we do have a geometric horizon, but you just said the one we see is apparent. No, we don't have a geometric horizon. So it's not like it's a win. In fact, it looks appalling. But you're saying that if they'd have understood that they needed to double speak between these two non-existent horizons and an apparent horizon that isn't physical, would leave them in a better position to argue this? Is that what you're saying?
If they used the united front, they would be still losers, but they wouldn't have looked as pathetically bad. And that's what Rumpus was up there. Rumpus was trying to create a united front and everyone get behind the same argument, because we were all getting behind the same argument we had, which was the Black Swan. So he needed them to get behind him, but they didn't understand what the hell the Black Swan was, and most of them obviously still don't. So he was still going to lose, but it's like game of chess. You're going to lose your queen. It's going to happen. It's over. Do you know what I mean? It's just a case of, do you lose a queen and a pawn, or do you lose just the queen? You have to go, well, she's gone. Queen is gone. I can save a pawn. Still on a loser. If you understand what I mean. They're not good chess players. Sorry.
We've just got a new guest. Who's Try? Hello, how you doing?
I've given the link. It's okay.
Hello.
Hello.
Good to have you.
Joined because he knows about Sly's water challenge thing, so I just wanted to.
Oh, is that Bev? What's up, Bev?
What's up?
How you doing, brother? Good to have you
Hey,
here.
babe.
Thank you.
Oh, what's your name?
Hello.
They call me Bev.
Oh, hi, Bev. Yeah, I know you are.
Yeah.
Hey, Bev.
All right.
He knows more about Sly's thing, so I wanted him to join. I was going to tell you, but I didn't get a chance before he joined because he reacted really quick and you hadn't stopped talking.
No, that's fine. Do you want to start there? Have we got anything to round out? Brian, I'm
What?
talking to you.
Sorry, Nathan, I thought you were finished with me.
I didn't know
all
if
I
you
would
wanted to
say
add
is-
anything to that.
Sorry?
I didn't know if you had anything to add in regards to whether or not being united. Your final point was if they took a united front, at least they'd lose together, or something like that. I mean, fair enough, if that's what you're
Yeah,
saying.
I know it's ridiculous. I know it's hilarious, but they wouldn't have looked as bad as they do now. Would be more damage control. I put a thing in Master B. It was a chess game called they called it a Black Swan game. It was one of Kasparov's last games against another famous chess player. And what happened was they ended up with the same good pieces, but Kasparov ended up with 4 pawns, and the other man, I can't remember his name now, ended up with 2. The other guy, he just conceded because he knew there was no way out of that. Right? He knew how good Kasparov. He knew that he was down pawns. He's losing. It's over. There's no way out. The problem with the ballers is they're not good chess players. They don't see when it's over, and that's the problem. And what Rumpus was trying to do was kind of show him that it's over, but we can pretend it's not if you do this.
Okay, that's a good analogy. I'm glad you rounded that out. Thank you, Brian. That makes a lot more sense now you've said that. Okay, Bev.
Oh,
Yeah.
can I add something?
Hold on, Bev. Yeah, go ahead, Darwin.
All right, thanks. I don't know. Look, this whole the Black Swan. It is a devastating argument, especially academic-wise, and we literally took their tie-in of their conceptual medium and took their fundamental suspense of disbelief trick to connect it to the actual Earth you're standing on. We took it away, but that doesn't mean that they still cannot just make it a little bit tougher step and just say, well, just presuppose the ball Earth. There's still plenty of conditioning left out there for people to latch onto that. So it's not entirely over yet, as in the mind.
No, that's wrong. That's what, I keep forgetting his name, Andrew Thomas Young did. He said, no, just assume atmospheric refraction. That's what he explained to Rumpus. Just assume the ball Earth. But that brings you right back to the Black Swan image. So what are you going to do there? Assume physical geometry of Earth, radius with the geometric horizon in that image? It'll all be okay if we just assume R? It won't be, though. That's the problem. That's why I laughed so hard when I heard him say it. Oh, right, just assume terrestrial refraction. Just beg the question of a sphere Earth. It's worked up until now. Yeah, it worked up until we debunked the geometry with the Black Swan image. Then you can't trust in R anymore, Arwin. So you might think it's just okay to carry on assuming R, in R we trust, but it really isn't. It's untenable now.
Well, on where the actual tie-in goes, yeah, that's right. We really took it away, but that doesn't mean that they can't continue on the dream and find some other little bit more difficult entrance for people to convince them.
I don't think you're right. There's nothing but cognitive pain for our opponents as they slowly cotton onto this argument. I mean, we're watching our own side cotton onto it quicker than their side, because obviously our side, the ones that aren't fighting us and entering into a pissing competition with us for some unknown reason, other than those, they see the devastating effect the argument has, utilise it and start winning. Well, that will obviously ramp up quicker for our side than any defence they can take, because they're on the whole either falling into the trap and chopping their own head off, or sticking their head in the sand, ignoring it. But as time goes by, more and more will cotton on to the death of the geometry that this argument provides. And if they do as you suggest and just continue to beg the question, just say, oh, I'll just trust an R anyway, that will lead to cognitive pain, because it's not cognitive dissonance anymore. It's not subtle, it's overt. The model being untenable from a geometric point of view is overt once you understand the argument. Now, don't get me wrong, if your position is to say, well, you can just stick your head in the sand, well, yeah, we knew that anyway.
Right.
Don't forget about the scale of the point is that if the horizon is not geometric and it's apparent, that is the point. But if you quantify it with the numbers, that's when it really hits, because the geometric horizon is only 1.2 miles, but we're seeing it in excess of 10. So it's like more than 10 times where it should be. That's the point.
Yeah,
so remember not to lose sight of the distances.
I made the calculation.
That's why they want to lose sight of the distances.
Hold on, Chocolate, just one sec. Hold on, someone from Discord's trying to get a word in. Go ahead.
I made the calculations. The radius would be 264,000 miles.
If it was based on the Black Swan?
Yes, based on the Black Swan. That's at 10 miles. It's only at 10.
That's a huge planet.
Isn't that bigger than the sun?
Not quite.
Nah, not bigger, but it's like it's close. Maybe not exactly, but yeah,
I don't like. I hate
considering Jupiter's radius is 43,000 miles.
Don't do it. Why give the qualification for how big the ball should be within their heliocentric fantasy of qualifications of sizes? Because you're immediately just taking away all the good work and reifying Jupiter into some bloody sphere-shaped rock that we can qualify the size of Earth if it's based on a radius that's bigger than the actual radius based on their maths within heliocentricity. No, don't do it, man. Don't do it.
No, there is a good answer to that, though. It's to quantify or crystallize the strength of the point for our side, not to argue against their side, but to let our side realize the significance of it. Either the Earth's tiny at 1.2 miles away horizon, or it's huge. That's the importance of it from our perspective. It's miles out.
Yeah, but to make that, I went through this with JLB, because he said, well, if your logical consistency says if Earth is a sphere with a radius of 3959, and that sphere radius comes from the geometric edge of the sphere based on that radius at 3959, then your sphere edge will be 1.225 times the square root of the observer's height in feet, putting, as you put it, a mile away horizon, physical geometric horizon, obscuring things beyond it, if you're at 1 foot. Well, if you're at 1 foot and you're looking out at the horizon beyond the platforms at what you described as 10 miles, but in excess of 9.4 miles, then you still have to take the step where you reify the horizon, a non-physical location that's moved with the weather, into a physical sphere edge. But at that point, you start with the logic of Jupiter being a certain distance and certain size with all your heliocentric maths, and you're saying that the physicality of Earth has grown. One day it was 39.59 on your typical white swan observation day, but today it's not. It's Albuquerque. What was the number again?
It's Albuquerque.
264,000 miles.
Stonking enormous. But that's an implication in physicality if you're asserting geometry. In other words, you're still going to say, oh yeah, it's still a physical edge. In other words, on that day, Earth's got much, much bigger in physicality, and the boats would still go over that horizon in that distance. But it's absurd to assert that the physicality's changed.
I get what you mean, Nathan, but isn't the modus tollens working within their argument to destroy it anyway?
But within their argument,
within their model, I mean.
Yeah, it is and it isn't when you argue it the way you are at the moment. That's my point. So, Quantum Eraser saying no take-backs. Once you've got a physical asserted geometry, that's it. It's the end. It doesn't change in any physical way, shape, or form ever.
Oh, I get it. Yeah.
So to say, well, we're on a bigger sphere.
The geometry has already been relinquished by them, so that's already a done deal. But I mean, like, I understand when, like, if somebody wants to do the math and the presupposition, just to kind of shove it in their face. Like, look, if your ball is supposed to be what it is, then it's got to have a radius of 264,000 miles, which is ridiculous.
But this is the point where you get to say you only have to destroy it once. And the reason is because once you've demonstrated that the horizon's not physical, that it's not being governed by the physicality it would have to be governed by at 39.59 radius value, once it's been destroyed, you end up in the position we're in. It's easier to contrast with their side and their rebuttal, with them saying it's refracted. Now, what they're essentially saying is it's not physical. Well, why would that be the case? Well, because once you've demonstrated it to be non-physical, you'll have to account for it as such from there on. So from this moment on, and forevermore, the horizon is non-physical. But their assertion is a physical assertion. So it's the beginning of the end of the argument. It's the beginning of the end of the religion of heliocentrism with this argument. So people in the comments that are like, why are you making 20 videos on the Black Swan? It's like, well, because it's the be-all and end-all of heliocentricity. It's the punctuation mark to the argument. The Black Swan ends physical assertions of geometry, which is what we've had to deal with until now. And how do I know this is the case? They're telling us how non-physical the horizon is currently. Refracted, right? Well, take that word, refracted, to mean end of physical globe assertion, because that's what it is. So it's the punctuation mark to this argument. And like I said in the last show, it's all well and good debunking the claims of seeing it as a full sphere from a sky vacuum. It doesn't debunk the geometry. This does. And how do we know it's debunking the geometry? Because they're telling us. We don't have a geometric edge, the basis of their claim. And they're telling us they don't have it. So like I say, it's the end of the argument in terms of Earth-based geometry. No longer can you trust in R. No longer do we have a physical Earth curve obstruction. And they're the ones to tell us that's the case. Refracted, non-geometric. Okay? Full stop on the argument, I'm afraid, guys. No way back. Can't go back to being physical once you demonstrate it to be non-physical. It's not that we're debunking necessarily the physical geometry with the value, to then have a substitute value placed in physical terms at the new horizon. That's not what we're doing. We're debunking the notion that it's physical. And as soon as it's declared as such by our opponents, well, of course, it's non-physical. It's refracted, for God's sake. Why won't you accept it? It's like we do accept that. We accept your concession. Welcome to flat Earth.
We don't.
What's even worse is that they're now using modus tollens in their arguments, like Mr. Sensible.
I wouldn't claim I was proficient. I wouldn't claim or try to formulate a modus tollens argument. Again, the reason QE gets as much props as he does is because it's a big risk, a massive risk. If you get it wrong, they can turn it into a very convincing affirming the consequent. If you fuck up and you beg the question on their behalf, start with the premise that the Earth's a sphere, they've already got a win because you're starting with the premise that they assert as their religious belief in the first starting sentence of the logic. Well, now, because it's worked, because QE's got it correct, because he's formulated this consistency correctly, they don't take the argument and say, ha ha ha, your argument is that Earth's a sphere, and start laughing at him because he's begged the question on their behalf. They tell us that the formulation in the first instance is a straw man. What does that mean? It means that you formulated their assertion of physical sphere, and they tell you that's a straw man. Yeah, again, yeah, we'll accept that. Thank you very much. The logic you're saying is a straw man argument is the basis of the physicality you assert when you say you're on a sphere. That's a win. Ka-ching. Thank you. Yeah, call it a straw man all day. But that's because the argument's well formulated. I'm not going to mention any names. Other people have tried in the past and got it wrong. And it's led to endless poking with people using and affirming the consequent formal logical fallacy that's seemingly been proved by their claim when they beg the question on their behalf. Again, I'm not going to mention any specific names. It doesn't matter. My point is that if you do this, you take a big risk. Listen to the logic. If the Earth is a sphere, we're starting out begging the question on their behalf. That's a dangerous game. If you get it wrong, you're going to know about it, because they're going to take that first statement and say, yeah, you know it. If the Earth's a sphere, you're damn right. As opposed to, if the Earth's a sphere, that's a straw man. Wonderful. Yeah, thanks, you've lost. Claiming the logic's fallacious is to say your geometry is fallacious. Thank you very much. I'll take that all day long. But you get it wrong, and suddenly they're affirming the consequent with your example. And it seems like you've proven the sphere on their behalf. So, yeah, you know, Mr. Sensible or whoever can try and formulate a logical consistency argument. They won't achieve it with a sphere Earth. There is no logic to back that argument. So you're never going to achieve an actual logical consistency. It will always turn out to be fallacious, without exception. Now, that's not to say that if you're formulating an argument within the logic that you've got a sphere beneath your feet, it's going to be really easy to debunk it, because we're not. Far from it. Yeah, QE needs a lot of props. He took a big gamble, and it paid off. But it was a calculated, educated, intelligent risk that was thought about, at length, discussed, and then put down on paper, expressed to the public, with gusto, i.e., holy shnikes, this is going to leave a mark. That's not overt confidence in something that's been vaguely formulated and might win, like we get in the comments from these morons. That's something that's had care and consideration put into it.
I think I could have an amazing straw man back and forth conversation with just 3 samples of things that Rumpus has said. Including the, yes, we do. Could say all kinds of things about their model. It would be hilarious. Maybe I'll do that sometime. Nothing? Nothing? Okay.
We'll have to hear it, Arwin. The idea that's in your mind,
the samples themselves are so funny, you know.
I'm sure the idea that you've got in your head's really funny, but until you actually play it out, it's not going to get a laugh, is it?
I know. We do.
Go on, Brian.
Never mind.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but is what you just said, I just want to make sure my logic is correct here. Have we? Let me just get this right. 1 second. I'll come back in a second. I want to get it right before I create that.
Got 3 minutes.
Oh yeah, that's it. Sorry. Have we burned their own straw man for them?
Burnt their own straw man for them. No, they've built a straw man and they have set it on fire. So the straw man is the idea that we're on a sphere. And then when you say, well, if we're on a sphere, this would happen, they then turn around and set the straw man of the sphere and its physicality on fire. with one word,
Okay.
refraction.
Well, it's rather that they just choose to kind of like jab their eyes out in the face of actual optics. And they prefer to claim this weird imaginary interpretation of how optics can work in order to, get the R-based looming in place, which is complete nonsense.
It's a contradiction in terms. R-based looming is to say looming, something that's moved with respect to the horizon by definition, but moved with respect to a geometric position based on R that's now moved. It's a geometric impossibility to do that. It literally makes no sense.
I know. That's why I've called it fractal looming, like 2 years ago. It is a science fiction. It's basically a piece of science fiction futurism. Just to overcome the globe problem, as it were.
I like this. James Richard with the super chat is condescending to the ballers. I really like this. It kind of follows on from Babs going, right, I'm going to go back and look at R and get a handle on it. So James Richard says, ballers who believe the images of Earth. Have you ever critiqued those images? ? Critique the images and see what errors you find. I'm going to add this paraphrasing. James Richard then taps the ballers on the head, gives their hair a little ruffle, and sends them on their way.
They can't critique their own work. They can't do it. That's the reason why they ignore. I mean, ballers don't generally argue for pro NASA stuff because they kind of they quietly accept that they're not going to argue NASA stuff. Although I have heard Laurie Lato arguing that NASA stuff's legit, but he's the only one I've ever heard really arguing that they're legit. But nonetheless, they don't argue it generally because they realize or at least appreciate that nobody can validate or add credibility to it because no one can get up to space. So they kind of give us a pass on that and we kind of give them a pass, apart from Laurie Lato for some reason. But they can't critique their own work. If they could critique their own work, they wouldn't be on that side of the fence. It's a cognitive issue that they can't get past.
Okay, so before I ask those of you who are watching this on the Nathan Oakley premiering stream to stay tuned, I'm going to do a quick plug to my GoFundMe campaign. So I've currently got a e-begging for an iPad GoFundMe campaign. So obviously if you can't afford to support this, go to the campaign, which I'll share in a moment, and either copy the link and share it with somebody or just smash the Facebook or Twitter links and share it around as much as you possibly can. I'll stick a link right now for the live audience, and if you're watching this on a re-up from the live show, there will be a link in the comments below. As I say, to all of you watching on the Nathan Oakley 1980 premiering stream, then stay tuned as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, if you are watching this live on Nathan Oakley channel, this is where we bid you farewell. A huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of you who smashed the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, and all that good stuff. Be sure to check out nathanoakley.com and the Flat Earth Debate Forum to keep up to date with the community debate. Another massive thank you to today's Discord and G+ panels for making this live show possible. As I say, stay tuned if you are watching on Nathan Oakley 1980, and I'll see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!